Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to recap the NFL's Week 16 action and update our ongoing betting competition. Talk a little bit more about the playoff picture for the NFL before getting into the Week 17 lineups. We'll start in the same place we've been starting the last many weeks at this point, with the most interesting stories from the most recent NFL week. Mike, what did you find most intriguing? Was it the tightening, I guess, well, at least staying pace at the top in the AFC with the Chiefs and Bengals keeping pace with number one seed Bills? Maybe more of the maybe fringe teams hanging around the playoffs near the bottom of the races, or more of like the QB cycling in with teams like the Jets or the Rams, or that kind of interest. What did you find most interesting from the last week?
I think there are a lot of interesting stories this past week. I think some of it is is obviously the playoff races in both the AFC and the NFC. The top seed is still technically up for grabs, even though it seems like even with Jalen Hurts' injury, and their loss against the Cowboys, the Eagles still have the inside track. But also, what it seems like there's a lot. Both conferences are very, very top heavy. I think there are probably really three good teams in each of the conferences, and I think that in the AFC's not as good teams are probably a lot better than the NFC's not as good teams. We worked it out how it's possible that the NFC could have three playoff teams that have non-winning records, depending on how things shake out. So there's I think some powerful teams, and it seems like a lot of those stories that have been these kind of not very good teams sort of hanging around the playoff race, but even though they're losing, like the Jets and the Lions, even though they're losing and they're still somehow in it, and then even in other bad teams like the Packers are also kind of are winning enough to kind of stay in the race, and once the Dolphins are falling and seemingly in free fall. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting results. Broncos, where it seems like despite the horrible coaching that Nathaniel Hackett has exhibited throughout the season, last week was somehow even worse than previous weeks. And even though there's only 2 weeks left, the Broncos couldn't leave them in for those next 2 weeks. They decided the Rams, Baker Mayfield, just blew the Broncos out 51 to 14, I think was the score.
Definitely 51.
Yeah, I think it was 51 to 14.
14, correct.
And yeah, that was. So I think that was the most surprising thing that happened.
Players seemed to be fighting with each other and the other team, and spilled out after the game was over even. So I think that may have maybe caused more of the reason for the letting go of Hackett maybe before the season's end was maybe that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Afterwards.
Yeah, it seems like the results were bad enough, but it seemed like the results, you're just gonna, you're out of the playoffs. Why bother changing things around mid-season? It's not gonna help, anything. But I guess with the team kind of imploding, you need to have a different person in charge. Whether you can say that's not necessarily Hackett. This part isn't necessarily Hackett's fault, but the whole team is just terrible, and the offense that was supposed to be very good has not been very good. It was only really good in that one game against the Chiefs, ironically.
Yeah.
And they, and then I guess it was okay last week, but then with Russell Wilson back, they took a step back, and so it's been Brett Rippon that has been providing more of a spark for the Broncos, and it's just been not that we're always the best prognosticators, but I think this hiring Nathaniel Hackett was something we questioned at the very beginning, and
Yeah.
it turned out we turned out to be.
You are a big fan of the legacy coaching.
I am not, and especially if it's a legacy of a coach that's not very good. And like that's the reason you're in the league. Like Paul Hackett was a terrible offensive coordinator, if you remember him for the Chiefs. It was like the worst version of the West Coast offense that could be run. It was short, deep passes, bad runs, and it was like It was like during the Marty Schottenheimer era with bad quarterback play, and it was, um, it was, it didn't make it. It was just a the offense was not the highlight of those teams, and the offenses of Nathaniel Hackett were also not the highlight of any of the teams he had played for. I think he had been on the offensive staff of the Titans, not known for their offense, and then on the offensive staff of the Packers, which is also a team that has not been noted for their offense in the last 4 or 5 years. They've been trying to do things without Aaron Rodgers most of the time, and
Yeah.
defensive run first team. And the only reason the Broncos seemed like they hired him was because he knew Aaron Rodgers, and maybe Aaron Rodgers would come to Denver, but that didn't even work out. And so it was just a dumb hire. And at least if you're going to hire a nepotistic coach, Mike Shanahan won a couple of Super Bowls. Some of these guys are, at least they're coming from a better coaching tree than
Yeah.
the Hackett's. I'm gonna look up Paul Hackett really quick just to. So he was.
Yeah. Does he have a better record than his son, winning percentage wise?
Well, he was always the coordinator. He was never.
Yeah, I don't think he made it to head. He wasn't a head coach, was he? So
he was a head coach in college. I remember. Yeah, now I remember. He was the head coach at the University of Pittsburgh for a while. And then he was head coach at USC somehow.
Really?
He was the offensive coordinator for those later years. Marty Schottenheimer teams from 93 to 97 that always choked in the playoffs because their offense couldn't score any points in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he had been so he was not he was the quarterback wide receiver tight ends coach for the 49ers at one point, and that's why he kept getting jobs, because he was associated with Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, and people like that. So I think he actually came to the Chiefs when Joe Montana came, and they said, "Oh, this guy knows Joe Montana, therefore he must be a good coordinator." But that never seemed to really happen. Then he was the Jets offensive coordinator and was not so good either. And yeah, I just didn't.
So has Nathaniel Hackett achieved more than his father did as a coach, because he has been a head coach, although be it unsuccessful.
Yeah, he has been a head coach. He was, let's say, it wasn't the Titans that he was the coordinator for. I'm sorry, it was the Jaguars he was the coordinator for. So also another team not known for their offense. So he was the Jaguars offensive coordinator from 2016 to 18, and then the Packers offensive coordinator 2019 to 21. And also I think Matt LaFleur, the head coach, called the plays anyway. So he was the Bills
questionable.
Yeah,
that's what he was doing.
He was the Bills offensive coordinator when the Bills were bad. He was
before Josh Allen was there.
Or Josh Allen, yeah.
Yeah.
He was Doug Marrone's offensive coordinator, and
we all remember the Doug Marrone era for its offense.
Yeah, right? Apparently he coordinated the running game okay. So the Bills and the Jaguars had decent running games, and so did the Packers, but the coordinating a strong running game in the NFL nowadays is it's a losing strategy. Like you need to run a little bit just to keep the defense honest, but none of the teams, I don't, really, other maybe San Francisco, you can say it's a good running attack, but it's not all running. And if you have maybe the Ravens have been good with running it, but it's because Lamar Jackson is dynamic, or the Bills have a running quarterback. But if you don't have a running quarterback, the run first teams are not. It's a strategy that's 2 decades out of touch. It's
Well,
it's
it
like
seems like now too that some teams have some success in basically using short passing in place of a running game and having as much success as actually having like a traditional running game would.
that's
As
what
long as
Andy Reid is.
as long as you have an accurate quarterback that can get to a receiver, get the ball to a receiver or running back quickly, then it works just the same as a run, but your odds of a big play are much higher than traditional run game anyway. So
Yeah, this is something that Andy Reid has been doing for
Mhm.
20, 25 years now about. So it's they would complain in Philadelphia and in Kansas City that there's not enough running game, but it's like the old saying, defense wins championships. It's not really. It's, I guess, you need to keep the team from scoring, but if you can, it doesn't matter where the points are coming from, whether they're prevented or scored. And usually it's a team that's able to score more because the defense is, well, I think the defense is more inconsistent, and I think you need a stronger offense than you. Defense helps, but you have to score points too. And running the ball is not a way of scoring a large number of points, especially if you're behind. You need to throw the ball. Passing is more adaptable for the situation. You can. It's I think the Hackett decision was really bad first place, and it was based on, I think, faulty assumptions and of all different sorts. Like, oh, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. That isn't going to happen. We're going to have a good offensive guru. No, he's a son of a coach, so he knows how to coach. No, it's all these things that Denver did, and it's sort of ironic that maybe the two worst coaching hires you thought were Josh McDaniels and Paul Hackett, and the Broncos were the ones who hired Josh McDaniels before.
Right. Yeah. So which is actually dumber, like a team that's hiring a new guy that hasn't coached at that level before, or hiring somebody that you already know has failed at that level before? So which one's actually the worst hire then, Mike?
Well, the idea is that sometimes people learn from the mistakes, and you could look at Bill Belichick, for example. He was pretty bad in Cleveland when he was their head coach.
But it's Cleveland, so
yeah,
does that really mean anything?
But you could say, well, it was Josh McDaniels wasn't he saddled with Tim Tebow as this quarterback when he coached the Broncos? I think it's Tebow.
That sounds right.
Era. Maybe let's see. Where did he come the year after? It's Tebow was picked in the 2010 draft. So yeah, Josh McDaniels was the Broncos coach 2009 and 2000.
So he's responsible for actually choosing him. Then is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then
or
McDaniels,
at least coordinating with the GM to choose him.
McDaniels was fired halfway in the 2010 season. I was just reading about. He was 3-9 when he got fired. There was also a videotaping scandal that the Broncos were illegally taping their opponents before practice. I guess coming from Bill Belichick's tradition, that was what happened. And then, if I'm correct, the Broncos actually challenged for a no, they didn't challenge for last. They were 3-9 and they finished 4-12, so they didn't. But the next year,
with Tebow.
The next year, Tebow was the starter the whole way, and they actually made the playoffs with Tebow. And then they decided, oh, let's screw Tebow and get Peyton Manning. And so I guess you could say, well, McDaniels didn't have really much of a shot because he had Kyle Orton. They traded away Cutler and acquired Kyle Orton to be their starter. That didn't work out. And they got Tebow. That didn't really work out. And so you could say, well, he wasn't very good. He had these problems, but that was years ago. It's also true that he bailed on Colts when he got that job. He took it for like a day and then quit. So I don't know. I don't think either hire was good, but I don't know which one was the worst. It's still possible. I think that McDaniels could coach next year
Yeah.
for the Raiders. So
Well, the
I
team doesn't
guess
seem to have like fallen apart, I guess, right? They're not seemingly fighting with each other on the field during or after a game.
yeah, they're 6-9. A lot of those losses have come because they've fallen apart with big leads. So I guess they've got the big leads, whereas the Broncos have lost their games because
Usually
they
the coach is the one that gets blamed for not being able to hold the lead, though, not necessarily the team, right? So,
yeah. Well, at
or
least
the
they could
the
get
players on the field. It's usually the coach or how the team is assembled, or they just don't have the longevity, the stamina to finish a game,
yeah.
or they have a dumb coach. So which
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say at least in the Raiders case, they could get a lead where the Broncos aren't even able to acquire a lead, and that's why
yeah.
they lose. So it's yeah, I don't know what, and maybe you could say if you lose leads, it's a problem with the defense. And Daniels is not supposed to be a defensive coach; he's an offensive coach. And Hackett, the problem was though they could never get the lead, and that's a problem with the offense because they can't score points. And Hackett was supposed to be
And
a coach,
he's
and
supposed to be the offensive guy, right?
so maybe that's the difference.
But
So
that's
I
just
would,
that's just you know like an exercise mentally to justify one thing or another when you know it can actually be a totally different reason, like why they hired or fired somebody, right?
I think they're both. Neither hire is going to be. Well,
Yeah.
we know the Broncos hire has not worked out. I don't think it's still technically possible that McDaniel's hire will work out, even though I think neither of us think it probably will. I guess it's possible to turn things around next year. I think the Raiders have some talent, but they should have kept their interim coach last year, the one who's actually Rich Bisaccia, who took them into the playoffs after
Mm.
the John Gruden scandals and things like that. And
Mm.
but um, whatever. It's
Right.
yeah. So I think I don't know if those are the. So yeah, I think as this NFL it's still known for kind of dumb coaching hires, dumb coaching decisions, bad play, but still some of these bad teams are in the playoff hunt.
What did you think of the Chiefs' victory over the Seahawks on Saturday, Christmas Eve?
I thought the Chiefs started out pretty well. They dropped a lot of passes. It seems like one of the things like Justin Watson dropped half the passes that uh, Mahomes threw. Mahomes had a very good game, but I think he probably played almost as well or just as well as he did in Houston when he was 36 out of 41. But the receivers this week just dropped pass after pass. I guess it's the weather that could be
Mm.
accountable, but
Also,
this,
the officials stayed out of the game for the first half. I don't know if you noticed that.
yeah, that was a um,
Welcome surprise.
yeah. Well, maybe it was too cold to hold on to anybody. Maybe they would say, but nobody wants to extend the game if it's like super cold out. So you're not going to get a lot of calls probably. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think that was also good. There were maybe the best part was no turnovers, no missed kicks. I think for the first time all year there was neither a turnover nor a missed kick. And I think every other game had at least one of those. Maybe
That's right.
I think the Chiefs hadn't had a turnover-free game since week 5, and
Yeah, no
they
for the Chiefs, and they had 5 penalties called against them this week, also.
yeah, so they had a good. Um, Mahomes played. He had an amazing touchdown run. He had, yeah, I think the team sort of in the middle of the game in the second half. It kind of vanished, the offense. But
Mm.
maybe that's the weather. Maybe that's just trying to not get people hurt.
The gentlemanly
Or the gentlemanly
way.
Andy Reid. Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned the touchdown run from Mahomes though. Was that image of the fully laid out with the left hand clearly in bounds, extending the ball to the pylon? Was that one of the best images for the Chiefs in recent times?
Well, yeah, probably I guess since Mahomes' last highlight touchdown. Maybe the Denver when he threw the Denver touchdown pass or
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, he's continually amazing. And that was a touchdown that really, yeah, he had to score. He had to do all of those things because he barely got it over the line. I don't think he needed to hit the pylon to do it,
Yeah.
but that's just the kind of
But he left
shit.
no doubt by touching the pylon, right? So there's no question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a good, yeah, it was a wonderful play, and I don't, yeah, it's hard to, it's something that's a little more athletic than you think of Mahomes as being because
Mhm.
he's not the fastest guy, but being able to hold yourself up with just one
Right.
without like hurting your elbow or something. It's
Right.
pretty amazing.
But it was the hand and not the elbow to like make sure that he's still up
Yeah, the elbow would have counted as a knee down.
as being down by contact, right? Or wherever the ball was, where the elbow hit would have been down. But yeah,
Mhm.
no. So no, it was great control and impressive finish to that play.
Yeah, and the defense played pretty well, even though they let the Seahawks hang around in the second half. But part of that was because the offense wasn't scoring enough points to put the game away. But I think
Mm.
a lot of that was just the weather. They the third quarter. I don't know what I don't know what happened exactly, but I think it was just a game that the Chiefs wanted to win and get through and make sure that nobody got hurt. I think that the next two games are going to be the same because they want the number one seed. They just want to win those games and
Mm.
try to be as healthy as they can for the playoff push.
They don't have the toughest of schedules technically, although they do have two division games remaining.
Yeah, they
Uh,
play. One of them is the aforementioned Denver Broncos next week, which actually kind of scares me because the Chiefs, I guess, they tend to play down to the level of their opponents, and since the Broncos are in complete disarray, that doesn't necessarily bode well for the Chiefs. And maybe the Broncos will have a little bit of an extra spark because of their interim coach. Rather, they want to, there's that. You remember that game when Todd Haley, I think, got fired, and Romeo Crennel became the interim coach,
mhm.
and then like the Packers, who had only lost maybe they were either undefeated or only had lost one game, came into like week 16 or 15 of the season, and the Chiefs beat the Packers at home, and
Mhm.
that's unfortunate. That's what got Romeo Crennel the job next year,
Yeah.
and that win. But sometimes the interim coach can give teams a little like Jeff Saturday. The Colts won their first game with him,
Mhm.
and
Carolina has done all right after Matt Rule's firing.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So sometimes those they can get that extra little spark. So I guess it's also possible that the Raiders will fire Josh McDaniels before the last game, and the Chiefs will face two interim coaches. But I don't think that. I don't think
it does make it tougher, like from the Chiefs' perspective, to like game plan what they're going to see in Denver because they don't really, they can't really. Nothing from the last several weeks can really apply to this week except for personnel. But the actual like strategy that they've been using may be completely different this week because they have a different head coach. So if the interim head coach has had enough time to devise some new scheme, then it could be a very different team than what their tape shows over the last, well, the entire season, right? So it will be interesting to see how Denver comes out in that game.
Yeah. Do you
If
know who
this
the
is more of the
interim?
same,
Who?
but
So do you know who the interim coach
I have
is?
no clue. Yeah, who is it? Have they named him yet?
It's a guy named Jerry Rosberg, whom I have never heard of. Rosburg.
Oh, Jerry Rosberg. No,
He
no.
was a defense. He's on the defensive side. He was before this. He was simply called a senior assistant for the Broncos. It seems like he had been out of football for 4 years before that. He was the special teams coordinator for the Ravens from 2008 to 2018. But I don't see it. There's no listing for him doing it. In 2019, he retired, and I guess he had come back from retirement to be a senior assistant, and now he's the interim coach. Which, yeah, 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 that's a little
Well,
strange.
if he's not familiar with the team, that makes it a little strange for a hire then.
Well, I guess he was a senior assistant earlier, so I guess that means he was just sort of around in the building, maybe
Maybe.
but yeah, but I guess it also says that it's somebody who does not have a chance of having the job next year, probably no matter what.
Maybe, yeah.
I
mean,
think that
your teams tend to like rally around. Usually it's somebody else that's inside or near. If there's like a dispute with a head coach and one of the coordinators, maybe, sometimes the player, if the locker room is lost, usually they may rally around someone,
mhm.
but a lot of times it's someone internally that they can rally around. Like Romeo Crennel was with the Chiefs. He was one of the coordinators, right, for the Chiefs at the time.
Yeah, he was the defensive coordinator. Yeah.
So it seemed like the players knew and liked him already. If they didn't have to like form a new bond with someone, it was already, he was already there.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it seems a little like a Saturday kind of hiring with just some rando. But I don't know. I guess he's not really a rando. He was a longtime coach, but he doesn't have a history.
He's familiar with the franchise, but not necessarily with those players, right?
Well, he had come out of retirement this year to look at. He's only been at the Broncos this year as a senior assistant, so
Okay.
he has no connection to the Broncos until this.
Really? Yeah, that's a little strange too.
Yeah, I was looking at an article about interim coaches the Broncos might hire to replace um,
Hackett.
Hackett, and there were 5 candidates, and none of them were picked. There was actually, I guess, what made most sense would have been to hire Dom Capers as Capers had been the coach. He had coached the Panthers and the Texans, I think. He was the senior defensive assistant for the Broncos. And
I mean, just from my perspective, from being really nothing, but the Broncos defense has been very good all season. It seems like the easiest thing to do would just be to promote the defensive coordinator to head coach on an interim basis to finish out the season.
Yeah, the current defensive coordinator is Ejiro Evero, is his name.
But the defense has been quite good most of the seasons.
Yeah.
Until this most recent game where they gave up 51 points to the.
He's fairly young, but I think he's technically he's a little younger than us, but I think he's younger than Hackett. Or he's older than Hackett, I think. I think Hackett was younger than us, right? We've now reached our 44th birthday. Yeah, Hackett is about a year younger exactly than us. He was December 79 birthday. So, but it was just, yeah, it's a strange, I don't know why. I guess you pick a guy that's not, I don't know, he's not going to turn. I guess maybe you don't want the defensive.
He turned it down. It said the article said that he was offered the position and he turned it down.
Rosberg turned it down.
Evero, defensive coordinator, was offered the job and he said no, thank you.
Ooh, that's not good.
So that's interesting.
That's not good. Yeah. So Evero turned it down. Wow. So that means that he's like he does not want to be with the team next year. Because like you would think if he was the
Maybe.
interim, he would have a good shot as an inside track of getting the head coach
Yeah.
next year. He is a good defensive coordinator, it seems like.
Well, so maybe he may have made that very difficult then. Oh, but so apparently Hackett brought in Avero. Maybe he didn't want to. This article says that they're good friends. So there may have been a loyalty.
Maybe, or maybe you think, well, if I'm the interim coach, I'm not going to get the head coach spot.
Maybe.
He's still pretty young. He's Avero, and he is. Yeah, I don't know. That's just a weird situation.
Wow, that's really surprising because that seems to make the most sense if you're a franchise as to who you would ask to be your interim coach would be to just go to your defensive coordinator who they've had a good defense.
Yeah, and I would have thought also this because Don Capers has been an NFL coach for a very long time.
Yeah,
he would have. He's also on the defensive side, so he would have made sense. I can see why you wouldn't want to pick one of your offensive guys. The offense has been so terrible.
Right. But you might want to bring an offensive guy in from outside then to try to fix it. But they're not going to fix it in 2 weeks.
Yes, I think you just pick somebody who's there, and
maybe that's it. Must be.
And,
but I guess if your number one choice turns you down, then you would be scramble. But that does make more sense as to how that worked out, and it wasn't just a random hire anyway. That's interesting. So, any other games from this week that you found pretty interesting?
Well, I found. Well, we'll talk about the ones we bet on. Those were interesting games.
Yeah.
It seems. I guess speaking of teams that are just like aren't very good that are playing up the season, the Texans have played the last 3 weeks very well. And they beat the Titans, and that has caused that seems like it maybe is sinking the Titans' playoff hopes. Just Jaguars are on their way up. The Jets have been really, the Jaguars really handily beat the Zach Wilson-led Jets, and Zach Wilson did so badly that he's not even going to be on the field again next week. So there are a lot of. It seems like a lot of bad teams have been very interesting in the way they've been bad, and I guess that's interesting. And some of the good teams are just rolling, even though they've had bad things happen, like the 49ers, Brock Purdy and the Brock Purdy and the Niners really beat the Commanders fairly easily.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles, even though they lost Jalen Hurts, played pretty tough against the Cowboys. It's I don't. There seem like there are a lot of there's not a lot of middle ground teams. We have really good teams, a lot of really bad teams.
The Packers and Dolphins maybe going in opposite directions now with their game this last week.
Yeah, what did you think of that game? Tua threw 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter, and now he's in the concussion protocol. Did you see what happened?
I did not. No, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened there. He finished the game though, I believe. I don't think he came out. I don't remember seeing him come out of the game anyway, but it wasn't. I think it was like the day after the game that they announced that he is back into concussion protocol for the second time this week, and probably should have been the third time maybe.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah,
no one else threw a pass besides Tua.
Okay, so there's a play. I see it was apparently late in the first half, that Tua gets sacked here or tackled. Yeah, he gets tackled. He dumps the ball off, and he kind of gets slammed. His head falls down back. Yeah, it's.
He hits the back of his head on the turf.
Hits the back of his head on the turf in the first. So I guess the whole second half. He must have maybe had the concussion, but I guess nobody noticed it, and he seemed fine. Maybe it took a while to develop like symptoms. So
he did throw 3 interceptions in the second half.
Yeah, all in the fourth quarter, and that's
the last 3 possessions all ended in interceptions.
Yeah, so that's kept Aaron Rodgers alive in the Packers
Ouch.
alive for the playoffs.
The missed field goal was their previous possession, so that's a rough second half.
Yeah.
Missed field goal, pick.
And then they lose by a touchdown.
6 points is all. Yeah.
Yeah, they were up 20 to 13 at the half. Could have been up by more. Yeah, they had a really good first half. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, their previous two possessions were end of half and fumble. So really the 2-minute warning on was not very good for the offense.
yeah. Yeah, since the field goal that made it 20 to 10, they had a fumble, end of half, missed field goal, interception.
Yeah. That's not so good.
No.
But now Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are now back in contention, I guess. They still have some chance of making the playoffs. They're not eliminated yet.
I am really tired of Aaron Rodgers.
Which means he's for sure going to win again this week. Does that sound right?
He's got the Vikings at home, and then I think the Lions at home. So if they went out, I think they're probably it. And it would be a
which means you're betting on them because you expect them to win then, right?
Well, what would be hilarious to me is if the Vikings blew out the Packers like for their first like big victory in a long time.
Yeah.
Rather than these close games. And that's what I really want to see, even though I don't think the Vikings are very good. I really don't want to see the Packers seem like or Aaron Rodgers get credit for leading his team back, even though they've just been terrible. And he hasn't been really good.
So is the prediction that he will win his last two games this year, make the NFC Championship game, and then they sign him to a longer contract?
That would be funny.
You have to listen to him even more for more years to come.
Yeah. So even though Tua threw 3 picks, he finished with a higher quarterback rating in that game than Aaron Rodgers did.
Wow.
If you look at the stats.
How is that possible? Is that Tyreek Hill related then? Because I remember seeing in the first half that Tua had like not a whole lot of maybe like 12 completions, but was like around like 200 yards of passing.
Yeah, he had a lot of passing yards in the first half. He finished with 310, even though they were really bad. So he was 16 to 25 for 310 yards, 12.4 yards per attempt. That's what gives him the higher rating. So 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Aaron Rodgers was 38 attempts, 24-38, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 238 yards. So he's only 78.6 rating. So
he had 3 receivers that averaged 24 yards per catch or more.
Yeah.
Waddle was almost 29 yards a catch. Tyreek Hill 26 yards a catch.
Yeah, he had a 52-yard pass to Hill and 84-yard pass to Waddle on the 2 plays. So.
That certainly helps.
Yeah, so somehow, yes, because somehow Tua is still the league leader in quarterback rating for the NFL.
His QBR though for the game. Rating was high, but his QBR was awful.
The ESPN total QBR thing, it was really low. It was even lower than Rodgers was only at 30 though, so it's not better. But,
no, not impressive. But
quarterback rating. Tua has 105.5 QB a quarterback rating. Mahomes only 105.1.
Wow.
And in QBR, the ESPN one, Tua is 3rd behind only Mahomes and Josh Allen. So he's tied. Actually, he's tied with Jalen Hurts. So it's.
But how are they doing in yardage though?
Hurts and Tua have about the same number of yards passing.
They're 10th and 12th, Tua and Hurts. 1,200 yards behind Mahomes, though.
Well, you remember Tua missed like 3 games though.
That's true. 2 games.
So yeah, 2.5 at least. So
Yeah.
I guess Hurts missed his last game, but still, yeah. In yards per game, Tua is sixth. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk? Do you want to move on to our betting exploits?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mixed this week, I guess, between the two of us.
Mixed bag. We finished 500 together, but you had a better week than I did. I lost 2 games and only won 1 bet. You were 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about the losses first or the wins first?
Let's do. Well, I think we should get the losses out of the way. Yeah.
So
yeah. I know you went with a very low over under number on one of the games, right?
I did. There was a low over under in the Saints Browns game. I think it was a 30. Was it 31? Was the over under?
32.
32. And I said over 32. And the Saints beat the Browns 17-10. The Browns had a chance at the very end to tie the game for the fourth quarter. So it would have gone 17-17 to push me over, and then overtime it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, so I'm not that sad because I don't like the Browns because of Deshaun Watson. But
yeah.
I'm glad that they lost. But
it is surprising that their offense has been so anemic though since he's been back. It doesn't seem to have that dynamic ability to make anything happen. Still 135 yards passing in that game, no touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah, Brissett has been a better quarterback than Watson, which is strange. I guess Watson's been gone for a long time and he's troubled, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, so the Saints are still technically in the hunt for the NFC South. I think all 4 teams in the NFC South can still win that division. So they're still in the playoff race. I think the Browns are technically eliminated now from the playoffs. The Raiders, according to 538, still have a 0.9% chance of making the playoffs. I predicted at one point I thought maybe the Raiders could make the playoffs when they only had 7 losses. They could have won. I thought maybe they could run the table if the Chiefs weren't playing for anything in the last game. But
yeah,
that doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to come down to the wire. But yeah, Cleveland had an 18-play drive that ended with turnover on downs.
Yeah,
the game. 18 plays, Mike.
That's a long. Yeah, they had a chance. They had a chance
and nothing.
Nothing. So, how about your first loss of your lone loss? I guess
my lone loss was the last of my picks anyway was I had the under on the San Francisco Washington Commanders game at 39.5, and there was more scoring in that game than I think probably most people would have expected, especially me.
The 49ers almost covered that by themselves.
Yeah, the final score was 37-20. Yeah, the second half really turned into a lot of scoring.
You look pretty good. First half it was only 7-7 at halftime. So
yeah, 7-7 at the half, and then it went crazy after that, though. Yeah, and it was
43
still a chance
points
at the end of the third quarter. There was still a chance. It was 21-14. I still had a chance.
One field goal would have in the fourth quarter would have at least it went way over. At least it went way over. It wasn't a painful last second field goal that
right. But yeah, I fully expected a complete defensive battle. I thought it could be a bit of a blowout, but I didn't think Washington would have points if it was going to be a blowout anyway. So that's not how it turned out.
Yeah.
No.
And we saw the return actually of Carson Wentz in that game for Washington.
Right.
Is that going to be a controversy? Is Heineke going to lose his spot again to Wentz?
I don't know. Is that? I'm not sure. Yeah, did he come out because of injury or was it
I'm not sure.
performance?
It seems like Heineke had played a very good game. He had one pick, but
Yeah,
if you look at the box score, his ESPN QBR was 84.1, which is very high. It's higher than Mahomes' average this year.
yeah,
And he had 114.6 regular quarterback rating. He had one pick, two touchdowns. And then Wentz had also a very good game, which was slightly higher in rating. So I don't know what. I think Ron Rivera wasn't sure what was going to be.
well, it looks like he looks like Heineke came out after he had a long sack where he actually lost the fumble. Nick Bosa sacked him for 9-yard loss. And then his next possession, he threw an interception. So they may have worried about his health, possibly. And maybe they pulled him at that point because of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't end up seeing that game, so I was.
I was watching part of it, but I was working during that anyway, so I didn't get to watch all of it
I
directly.
think they should stick with Heineke because I think Wentz is put Wentz back in, put him in again at the beginning of the season and see what happens. But
Yeah.
Heineke gotten the team into contention. They were out of contention when Wentz was playing.
I think my assumption is that they were worried that the Heineke was injured and or was rattled maybe, and there was no reason to risk him getting further injured
That's
or
true.
or more rattled. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. How about what was your second pick then?
My second loss was what was my second loss? I'm sorry, I've drawn up like it
You
was.
had Minnesota
Oh yeah,
minus
Minnesota. Oh, that
9.
was the worst. That was my worst loss by far.
Yeah.
We had Minnesota. Well, I had Minnesota by 3.5 at home against the Giants. They were up most of that game, and they were up by 8 points until the very end. When with 1 minute, less than 1 minute left, the Giants scored a touchdown and the 2-point conversion to tie the game. And then instead of going to overtime, where the Vikings would have had a chance to cover it had they scored a touchdown, they kicked a 61-yard field goal to win the game and won by 3. And
Instead of the 3.5, they should have kicked
yeah,
a
so it
4-point field goal just to cover the spread. Yeah.
I think 60 plus yards should be worth 4 points. Just
Or at least
saying.
3.5 anyway, right?
Yeah, 3.5.
Just to
Yeah.
just to get back to a push. Yeah.
Yeah. So like both, the Giants betters, even though the Giants lost again, I'm sure they're cheering when that field goal went in.
Right.
That's I guess this is why the lines are so well done by the bookmakers, and this is why they make money. And
61-yard field goal. Did you get to watch that one? Were you paying attention to it?
I was paying attention to. I wasn't watching it. I was
Yeah.
in the car most of the time during the 1 o'clock hour. I was listening to the Chiefs game on the radio, and I yeah, I just had followed it, and I saw
Yeah.
I was just following it kind of along, and that was a bad. I guess you can call it a bad beat, but it was it was very close. Had the I guess had the Giants not they would if the if the Giants hadn't got the 2-point conversion, they would have lost by 2, and they still would have lost. So
Right. And the Vikings would have tried to.
yeah. So but I thought it was good that the Vikings actually got the 2-point conversion. I mean, the Giants got the 2-point conversion because then at least the Vikings weren't going to kneel down and end the game that way.
They
But
give you a chance. Yeah.
I thought it was going to go to overtime, and they ended the regulation with the field goal. So what are you going to do?
And that cost you your chance to get to even for the year too.
It did. I was 1 game under 500. Now I'm 2 games under 500.
So you're gonna be, angry at Greg Joseph for the rest of the year, then, right?
I suppose. I guess I'm just angry at I'm angry at myself for betting on the Vikings in a game, and they only play close games or they lose blowouts. And so
Yeah, the Giants maybe aren't good enough to blow them out, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna be close.
That's what I get. How about you? Maybe we'll switch over to victories now. What was your second bet?
So my second bet was I bet on my last two bets were both on teams that I thought had good playoff chances and really needed victories. First though was Jacksonville's win over the Jets. I had the Jacksonville was a pick 'em even at New York Jets, and yeah, Jacksonville won pretty handily in that Thursday night game.
And it was and the Jets are
Finished,
I think I was surprised that
19-3
that
was the
line
final.
was so close.
Mhm.
The Jaguars have been playing very well. The Jets did not have their best quarterback right, and in general they aren't very good, even though they had started out the season kind of surprisingly well. Yeah, this was a game where the only points the Jets scored were basically given to them at the beginning of the game when Lawrence got sacked and they fumbled the ball, and then deep in his own territory, but the Jets could only muster a field goal rather than a touchdown, and it ended 19-3 or 20-3, 19-3,
19-3.
19-3.
A lot of field goals.
A lot of field goals. So yeah, good. That was a good bet. I would have been I would have been on that same side as well. Again, trying to shoot my own horn, but I did not know that game. But it was good. Yeah, good bet for you. Zach Wilson, it seems like, is probably done now in New York.
He was replaced in the game by
Chris Streveler, we had, I believe, talked about Streveler at one point last year or the year before.
that's right.
He was quarterback for, I think he was Ravens and Dolphins practice squad. He was Arizona's one of their backups for a while, and he has played. He got into 5 games in 2020, but he is a former Winnipeg Blue Bomber. His most success has been in the Canadian League. He won the Grey Cup in 2019. He was the CFL co-rushing touchdowns leader in 2019 with 2 other players. I haven't heard of it. It's interesting how the CFL, like these guys that play in the CFL, most of them play for American colleges, but I don't remember any of these players in
Yeah.
college football. It's a very different world. Canadian. I kind of think I should follow the CFL a little bit more, but I haven't. I haven't developed the the interest really. It's just one of those where I think.
I do think it was interesting in this particular game anyway that Zach Wilson played the first half plus the next 12 minutes of the second half. Streveler had only 2 fewer yards passing and led the team in rushing, playing the last 18 minutes of the game. So Zach Wilson in let's see, what would be a 43 minutes of game time. 9 of 18 passing for 92 yards, only 5.1 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 3 times. Did not fumble though, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah,
Streveler had 90 passing yards and also rushed for 54 yards. Next highest rusher on the team, like 7 yards. They apparently have no running game and really no passing game either, I guess. That's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, the Jets still are technically in the playoff race. I think if they win the next 2 games and New England loses one of their next 2, they're in the playoffs. So still a lot of bad teams can make the playoffs.
Wow.
Speaking of bad teams that can still make the playoffs, the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC, the Chiefs beat them. That was my lone victory. The Chiefs were actually favored by 9.5, and they won by 14. It was a little bit touch and go at the end when it was 24-3. It seemed like a comfortable win, and then the Seahawks scored a touchdown to make it 24-10, and then an onside kick, and who knows what's going to happen with that. And they could have gotten another one at the end, but it was the second straight game where I have bet the Chiefs at home by 9.5 points as 9.5 point favorites where they have covered. The last one was against Jacksonville several weeks ago. So that was my lone victory. I'm happy about it. I'm not going to bet the Chiefs though again this week. But what was your third pick?
My third pick was on the Bengals. I had Bengals minus 3.5 at Patriots.
That was a fortunate win for you.
Well, it didn't look so good early because the Bengals didn't play the first half. No, they played the first. No, it was the other way around. It looked great
the second half, yeah.
And then they basically took the second half off. So
it was
they were
the opposite of
the
Buccaneers Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were way up. They were up 22-0.
Yeah.
And then it looked like the
got dicey. It was an interception return for a touchdown late in the third quarter. With a missed point after attempt. Then two more touchdowns in the fourth quarter from the Patriots, also with missed extra point attempts for a 22-18 and a half point covering the spread, Mike, because of all of the missed extra point attempts.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was when the Patriots had the ball on the Cincinnati 5-yard line, and they fumbled it with like 2 minutes, less than a minute left in the game or something like that. So that's what cost them. They were up by, it was a 3.5 point cushion, and they won by 4. So you won. Our margin was, I lost my 3.5 point favorite by half a point, and you won yours by 1/2, and that has vaulted you into the lead in our betting, if I'm adding correctly.
That is in the lead by a push back to this scenario again. So you're now 23 and 25 minus $200 on the season, and I'm 23, 24 and 1 minus $100. So now it's time for me to get just try to play for the close victory on the season. You just have to close it out, right?
You're gonna be a gentlemanly Andy Reid type.
Seems to be how we do this. I mean, you'll take the lead back next week, and then we'll end up tied somehow in the last week.
We'll have a push. We'll have one of these pushes somewhere to.
Yeah, you need to get another push to even this out, right?
Right. I guess it's possible I could get a push this week, because I believe all of my games.
Oh, I think all of your games are pushable.
Although, as I check this now, when I made one of my bets was Seahawks over Jets -2. As I check right now, it's down to 1.5. So should we keep the?
Good thing you checked. No, I don't know.
What do?
It is 1.5 now.
Yeah,
Do you want it to be? We you'd already made the pick, so you can have.
I locked it in. We already locked it in. We'll lock it. Yeah. Okay.
You can take it either way. I don't really care.
We locked it in at 2. Why don't we keep it at 2?
Do you want it at 2? Would you rather have it at 1.5?
Well, of course I'd rather have it 1.5 because I picked the Seahawks.
Yeah. Did the other ones stay the same? We should check that. The Arizona Atlanta game stay the same.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't want to spoil the.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll talk about my first bet then.
Yeah. I'll check them as we go. Yeah.
Okay. So my first bet of the week is the Jets, the losing Jets, 7-8 at the 7-8 Seattle Seahawks on Sunday afternoon. The Jets are somehow favored, but I guess that's because Mike White is going to be the quarterback and Joe Flacco is going to be the backup, leaving Streveler perhaps as number 3, but leaving definitely Wilson out of the picture.
I believe he's deactivated actually today, so he's will be inactive for sure in the next.
Yeah. So I think the Seahawks, even though they lost to the Chiefs fairly handily, have a better team. I think they are still thinking of themselves as playoff hopefuls. And Kenneth Walker, their star running back, is healthier probably this week than he was last week. Smith is still a decent quarterback. I think maybe Lockett might play next week for them. So I think they're, even though they're both those teams are kind of going downhill. It's in Seattle. It's a long trip for the Jets. I like the Seahawks to win that game. And
there may be a little added reason why Seahawks may want to perform well in this game. Not necessarily the Seahawks, but specifically Smith, right? Geno Smith.
Yes. Geno Smith against the Jets. I guess. Wait. I do want the Seahawks. I want to keep the 2 because I want because that gives me more.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. I was confused there. I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's Seahawks +2, so I want to keep the Seahawks +2. Yeah. I was way off. Anyway, I was thinking of Seahawks -2 rather than because I thought I was surprised that the Jets were favored. So I think even if it were Seahawks -1 or something or 2, I would have probably taken the Seahawks here. So.
Yeah,
I like the Seahawks at home as home underdogs. How about you with your first bet next week?
My first bet, I'm going back to the Chiefs Broncos game. I don't know if the Chiefs will actually cover the 13.5 point spread, but I do think the over under number is a little bit low. Broncos, with a new head coach in a bit of disarray. But it does seem like teams that are in this scenario somehow manage to at least score a little bit. So I'm gonna expect the 2 teams combined to be able to cover the 45-point line. So I'm gonna take the over in this game.
Yeah. Well, the Rams scored 51 against the Broncos last week, so they by themselves covered 45. So you would think maybe this might be it's at home. The Chiefs had been on the road. I guess they had been on the road for 3 weeks before this past Seahawks game, so they're on the second half of a homestand and last home game of the regular season for them. So maybe they want to go out and bang. So yeah, I wouldn't make the -13.5 pick for sure. So yeah, the over under I would say is a much safer if you wanted to bet and think of it. Yeah, so I think that's a possibility. It's over 45 for sure. It doesn't seem like the Chiefs have the Broncos have a good defense, but it doesn't seem like the Chiefs, it doesn't matter who they play. They can still post points.
They're still going to put up at least mid-20s, you would guess.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they have a terrible game and
Yeah, I see the Chiefs is putting up over 30 probably against the Broncos. And so
I don't expect the 51-point outburst, but
yeah.
I'd like to see that though.
Yeah, I think the Broncos defense is not in the best mood right now, so they might not be able to hold the Chiefs. I also have an over/under bet this week, and that was the again a game that's 2 not so good teams, Falcons Cardinals, and I thought the over/under was set at 41, which is a little bit high because the Cardinals are not. I don't know if it's going to be Trace McSorley again for the Cardinals, but it's going to be a backup quarterback, whether it's Colt McCoy or Trace McSorley.
Mm-hmm.
And the Falcons have Desmond Ridder as their starter now. So I don't see either of those teams as scoring very many points. 41 is the over/under. It's in a dome, I guess, but I'm going to go with the under 41.
Yeah, is Kyler Murray out for the rest of the year or what?
Yeah, I think he tore his ACL.
Is that it? Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, so he's out. So it's gonna be either McSorley or McCoy.
And they did announce that JJ Watt's going to be retiring at the end of the season too. So
yeah. Maybe they'll want to go out with a bang. But as a defensive player, that's good for me because
exactly.
It's always possible JJ Watt's gonna have like a pick 6 and a fumble return sack touchdown or something like that. So,
He covers
account
the
for
over. He covers
yeah,
the over himself on the defensive side.
yeah.
Is that
That wouldn't be good. But 41, you need quite a few defensive touchdowns if the offenses are enough to get over 40.
right?
So I'm I don't know. I like the under there. How about your second one?
My second pick, I'm going to follow another successful bet from last week. And I think, yeah, Jacksonville still going to be, I think, looking to continue their winning streak and make their final push to win the division. They now have the lead in the AFC South. They're a 4.5-point favorite at Houston, and I'm going to take Jacksonville minus 4.5.
1.5. Okay. I think they're really heating up. I guess you could say it doesn't matter. Maybe Jacksonville doesn't care about this game because all they have to do to make the playoffs is beat the Titans in
Overlook this game and get to the next one.
Yeah, even if they lose, it doesn't matter. But I guess there's also an outside shot that they can make the playoffs without winning the division. So, but
why risk it? But just win all the games you can. I think it should be their mentality.
I think so too.
We'll see what they do, I guess. But
yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if you. Yeah, I think the Jaguars have proven that they're a decent team, if not a great team, and Trevor Lawrence has played pretty well over the last several weeks. So,
and Houston did get a win last week.
Yeah, they did.
But
after two close games against powerful opponents, the Cowboys and the Chiefs, both games went down to the wire. But maybe Houston's a little tired now since they've played 3 tough games in a row.
And they probably, for their draft position, don't want to win too many games because there's probably somebody that they should have their eye on. Yeah, if they win one more game, they're at risk of getting out of that bottom seed.
Yeah, the Bears could take it. They're 3-12, and if they lose, they'd be 3-13, and the Texans, if they win, they would be 3-12-1. So they would lose the number 1 pick. And although the Bears, I guess you could say if the Bears are the number 1 pick, they aren't going to pick the same person that the Texans would because they had Justin Fields as their quarterback in the future. They aren't going to pick a quarterback number 1.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't matter probably. Although maybe you could say, well, the Bears might be very willing to trade out of that number 1 spot, and somebody could go in and swoop and get,
right. So why risk it?
Yeah.
Play to get that 1 seed, and they'll also get another high pick too because Cleveland is near the bottom, and that's who gets. They get Houston gets their draft pick too, correct?
I think so.
For this year and I think next year too. As part of the Deshaun Watson trade. So Houston stands to potentially gain a lot of ground, maybe very quickly through the draft, if they select wisely.
Yeah, they have the Cleveland first-round pick and the their own first-round pick. So they have 2 possibly top
10
to 12
1
picks.
and maybe 10-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. They have 12 picks overall. So yeah, good. So maybe they aren't going to. But maybe it's because you want to win games, and I'm sure Lovie Smith wants to keep his job. So maybe he's going to keep winning.
How about your third pick?
My third pick is in the Monday night game next week. I believe it's the Monday night game, and that is the biggest game of the weekend. And that's the Bills at the Bengals. Right now, the Bills are favored on the road by 1 point. I'm going to take the Bengals at home with that 1 point. And I think the Bengals will win. But I guess if they tie us, I will still come out on top. So I'm going to take the Bengals. Bengals +1. I think
as a Chiefs fan, that may actually be a fully acceptable outcome, though, is a tie.
Tie. Yeah. Either way, yeah. I think. Well, the Chiefs are up by 1 win against the Bengals right now, and they're tied with. Yeah. So I think Bill. I think it would be easier if the Bengals beat the Bills, but I guess a tie wouldn't really change things. That I think the only thing that would change if they tied would be where the potential playoff game would be. I think if the Bills and Bengals tie, I think the Bills would drop into the potential number 2 seed for the AFC. Right? The Bengals would stay at number 3, whereas if the Bengals win, they would flip, and the Bengals would be the 2 seed, and the Bills would fall from 1 to 3, and the Chiefs would still have 1 either way. So,
yeah, but then they have a game and a half lead over. Well, they'd have that extra half game at least.
They only
over
have a half game. Yeah, then they only have a half game over Buffalo still. So,
right.
Um, yeah. Anyway, I don't think a tie will happen because
No, but it's acceptable.
It's acceptable.
And for this bet, it's acceptable.
Those teams can score points, both of them, and if it goes to overtime, one of those teams will probably score points and not just have a 0-0 extra
Probably.
period. But I think the Bengals have been playing a little bit better as of late than the Bills. So maybe it's wishful thinking. I want the Bills to lose so the Chiefs can be the number 1 seed. So, but Bengals +1 over Bills Monday, January 2nd. How about your
I like
final?
this game too, but I'm not confident in the outcome of the game. But what I am confident in is that points will be scored in this game. Over under numbers 49.5, and I think they'll clear that in this, because they're both going to be trying to win. They're both going to be putting a lot of points on the board in order to try to outpace the other team. That's what I would expect to see.
Even a 27-24 game is going to go over that. So I could see
that one of those potentials to go, way over this number.
30-27
it does turn into a shootout, but we'll have to see what happens. So this is one of those opportunities where, this could define our season as a competition. We could both win this pick, this last game, with bets in the same game anyway. It's not the same bet, but it is around the same game. It puts more intensity on our Monday night. Mike versus Andrew becomes just as important as Bill's.
Yeah, it's really our betting it's really been an up and down roller coaster of a season for both of us. I think even perhaps beating each other, we still both have we both have a decent shot of finishing above 500 for our picks against the spread. So we probably both want to do that too. Would you rather finish above 500 and lose to me, or would you rather be below 500 and be ahead of me?
I think I would rather us both get over 500. I think that's more entertaining, I think, really. So I would rather. I honestly don't care if either of us wins this. I think mostly this is like, should either of us be making actual bets in the real world and not just thinking about it, but like, you kind of have to like figure out if this is worth trying in the real world, and that's
it seems like
more of that to me.
It seems like we wouldn't necessarily be hemorrhaging money if we.
Right.
We wouldn't be making money, but like you say, well, you don't make money going to the movies either, and it's a harmless. You're only losing a little bit of money for doing that, or you feel so like it's not like we would be mortgaging our homes by making, but losing our mortgages by making these bets,
right?
At least so far, but we'll see. I'm only 100. I think I'm $200 down over the course of 16 weeks. So I think I'm losing $12. That'll be $12.50 per week I'm losing, and you're only $100 down, so you're only losing $6.25 a week. So that's not bad.
It's okay.
Yeah. So for many hours of entertainment that only cost a handful of dollars. Although I guess we were making bets with a betting agency, we would also be losing the juice $10 each bet probably. So
yeah,
there would be more.
It'd be a little further off than that, but and it's given us a reason to sort of pay attention to games like Jacksonville and Houston. Like, why would we care otherwise? They don't really have anything in this, but if we
this Cardinals Falcons game, I think both of us were. Either of us were going to be terribly invested in it, but now since there is fake money on the line. Maybe
Right. And,
sort of
and
bet.
then and then because you have money on that Arizona Falcons game, now I want to root for a high scoring game so that your bet will fail. So it's like, no.
Or, but you're ahead, so you should if you go 3-0 every time, you control your own destiny. So you don't need to root for my losses. I have.
But I always seem I have not gone 3-0 on any week this season yet. So I'm
You
not.
haven't. I've gone 3-0
Yeah.
a
I
couple of
think
times.
twice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been more up and down. I think.
Week 15 in week 7, you went 3-0. I've gone 2-1 a lot. But yeah,
I think 1 and 2 is my most common.
I didn't tally that up anyway.
The
But
mean and the mode and the
right, I've gone 0-3 twice. Looks like you've gone 0-3 twice also.
So it's the 2 and 1s versus the 1 and 2s. That's where we're really.
Yeah, so I mean, I was 4-11 after week 5, and so I've 2-1 to my way up to only 1 under 500. So
Congratulations, Dr. Scaff.
yes,
I think that's probably a good note to end on.
so
Talking about our climbing the mountain and maybe hopefully not slipping down as per.
to me, climbing a mountain to mediocrity,
Yes.
like halfway up the mountain,
Yeah.
not to the peak. You know,
It
just
reminds me
somewhere.
of the end of the Lord of the Rings movies where they didn't need to climb. I was thinking they didn't need to climb all the way to the top of Mountain Dew. They just need to go inside to dump the ring, and
Yeah.
and then they couldn't even do that until Gollum bit the bit the ring off of Frodo's finger, right, and then stole the ring. As it was, I don't know. It was a lot of things can happen on the way to the on the way to potential victory, but similar to what I like my Jeff Saturday analogy last week with the Simpsons in Springfield Gorge, but that's another. We didn't even talk about that this week. The Jeff Saturday
Continuing
blowout.
saga.
Yeah, they got blown out by the Chargers, who have earned the first playoff berth of Justin Herbert's career with that victory. So, but anyway, the playoff pictures are shaping up. Our betting competition is also going to shape up and reach its conclusion in the last couple of weeks. So tune in next week to see how that see what happens there. And until then, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our many delivery vehicles, whether it's through podcasts or our YouTube channel. And until then, I bid you good day.